Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 227 of the show, and before we get started, we're just going to do a little bit of house cleaning quick because, well, you guys don't like to do it around here, so it only makes sense that we do it, so let's just get on with the house cleaning. Obviously, thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly take time in days to download these episodes, to share these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how I feel, whether you like my stupid face or not. And as you can tell, well, we're back to the normal schedule, and as you can clearly see, we're back in the dorm room again. Because, well, I'm back at school, so yay, I get to be in the dorm room. Obviously, you could probably, I don't know if you're watching the video version, you can clearly see some of the stuff in the background. Like, the room is a little bit more organized this year. If I could do a whole room tour, I would. It's just a lot. And, I'm getting some new plushies added in the collection, in the setup. So you might end up seeing those in the background. But I know we just talked about some random stuff, but it's also real talk today. So the conversation is more free-flowing anyways. But if we want to go back to just finish up the house cleaning. Again, thank you guys for listening to today's episode. It really does mean a lot to you that you guys obviously keep supporting the show, because last week you guys just completely blew up the downloads. Like, I think we hit over I think I posted on my social media, over 102 downloads just on the first 2 days. And it's like, wow, you guys really did miss me a lot. And so I greatly appreciate that. And hopefully we can hit the goal of hitting 4,000 total downloads by the end of the year, which that would be insane. So if you like what you see and you like what you hear, then, well, keep hitting the download button and keep sharing and letting me know how you feel about the show. Because at the end of the day, we keep doing this because, 1, I like doing it. 2, I love feedback. And 3, I just love talking about some of this stuff, whether it be the real talks, whether it be talking about trends in technology, business, the video game industry, talking about latest pieces of tech, goodies, whatever interests me, whatever tickles my fanny, if you keep using that term. If you don't, then I'm just weird and old. But aside of all that, thank you guys for supporting the show. Obviously, the Patreon backers as well. Thank you for supporting the show. So if you want to become a Patreon backer, there's a link down below and go click on that sucker. But with all of that out of the way now, we're going to do a real talk today. And this one, I want to preference that this is not some sort of rant or me trying to sway you one way or another. What I want this real talk to serve as a way of explaining how I feel, a lot of takeaways, because spoiler, we're going to be talking about the internship. And the reason I feel like it's appropriate to talk about this, because 1, it took us away from almost a month of doing the show. So clearly there had to be something going on here. And there are many things that I could say that I wasn't happy with. There are many things that I could say that bothered me, things that I don't necessarily agree with. But there are a lot of learning lessons here to take away from an experience like this, because yes, as a college student who is close to graduating and about to transition into working in corporate America and things like that, there are a lot of experiences here that are very valuable and useful, especially for a lot of people, because let's be honest here, based on stats and I can see the metrics of the show, a lot of people that are listening to the show are between the age ranges of 18 to 24. So the age ranges of people, just starting college to people, whether transitioning into corporate America, maybe going for a master's, maybe an MBA or a master's in engineering, whatever it may be, maybe going to law school, med school, whatever it may be, higher education in some shape or form. And I feel like it's important to have this conversation about some of the lessons that I've learned while working in corporate America, because I'm being honest with you, this was my first real experience working in a corporate setting and really working in corporate America, and especially working at a very big company, because it was very public who I was working with, because we talked about it. I had the opportunity to work at Dell. And in many ways, people could say, yeah, you were winning at life because, well, as a college student, who wouldn't want to work with a big firm, especially like a big tech firm that is known for very, very good products? Like, if you don't believe me, I'm clearly using one of their monitors right now because I'm using it to look at OBS and whatever. And it's a really good monitor. I like it. At the end of the day, I want to use this real talk as a learning lesson because that's really what the real talks are for. Is they're all learning lessons. They're all ways that we can learn and grow as people. And there are many takeaways from this experience that I want us to dissect and really talk about. So let's talk about the background, the overall background of how we got to the point that we're at now. So fast forward, or in this case, not fast forward, but let's turn back the clock a little bit. And let's go back to, what was it, September, October of last year. Basically almost this time last year, that I had applied to the sales internship at Dell and went through the whole interview process. I got the internship offer. I later found out that I was working with the federal section, so that was a really big surprise, and we'll get to that a bit shortly. Fast forward to the summer. So we finally get to start the internship. We finally begin the process of travel things, because obviously I had to go to Round Rock. I live in Dallas, so setting up the travel stuff. Obviously this is post accident, so I didn't have my car at the time, and clearly I was also about to undergo surgery because of the accident. And the internship started off remote for the first 8 weeks. The last 2 weeks, they drove us out to Round Rock, where we got to work in the headquarters for the last 2 weeks and really get to work in the federal section, get to see the headquarters, get to really get a better understanding of the day-to-day operations of how things are in the facility. If I'm being honest with you, even though, yes, the outcome was not what we wanted, because, spoiler alert, we didn't get an offer. Because as expected, most people, you do an internship, you would like to get an offer maybe full-time after you graduate. In my case, hey, I didn't get it. So I'm saying this right off the bat before somebody gets on my grill about this. But there are many things that I take away from the internship experience that, well, I really enjoyed. It was a very... I say this in a good way. It was a very unique and a fun experience because I got to interact with people that I normally wouldn't interact with. I got to meet a lot of people that come from different backgrounds, different experiences. Some people have already worked in corporate America. Some people have never started. Some people younger than me. Some people that, hey, they obviously have seen a lot of stuff in their life and they've clearly know what they want to do. And, I'm fortunate enough that I'm in that boat, that I know what I want to do. But for me, this experience helped set up 3 important things that I want to talk about here. We want to talk about the importance of networking, the better understanding of how corporate America works, and at the same time, well, here's the last part, understanding the importance of feedback. And I think these are 3 important things that I want to talk about. So let's talk about the first part. So let's talk about, let's talk about the part of working in corporate America first, because I feel like this is such a big thing, especially in today's society where we talk about things like, well, the Great Resignation, or resignation, if you know what that is, where people are starting to, bet on themselves, or people are leaving the corporate space and going to become sole proprietors or start their own business, yada, yada, yada. And in many ways, I found this very interesting, how I always had this very negative stigma about corporate America, because that's just the environment I grew up in, where corporate America sucks. You go to the 9 to 5, work in the office, just brain dead work, you collect your paycheck, move on, do stuff in your free time, yada, yada, yada. And this was one of the first times where I genuinely saw people genuinely enjoying what they were doing. Yes, I'm also saying this from the perspective of, I was in a sales academy, I was doing the sales internship. So clearly for a lot of people, it's natural to say that money talks and that money brings happiness, because obviously the whole point of working in sales is to generate revenue. So the more revenue you generate, the more you get paid, and then, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the more your bank account is happy with you. But in many ways, it was weird to actually see people enjoy what they're doing, enjoy who they're working with, and at the same time, just were actually decent human beings. Now, that's not saying everybody was exactly the best type of person I would naturally interact with. I'm just being honest with you. There were a couple of people that were kind of dicks. I'm not going to name any names, but yeah, that's just the cold hard reality. There were obviously some people that, hey, kind of dickheads. Is that a bad thing? No, it's just that's how they are. And, that's just the reality of it. You're not going to change people. But there was a lot of it. There was a lot of stuff there that I respected a lot of the work ethics from a lot of people. I respected a lot of the mentality, especially this leads perfectly into the other point, which is the importance of networking. That I did a lot of networking while I was there. I did a lot of one-on-ones, and as also a better understanding of corporate America, one-on-ones are a very important thing, whether with your managers, other teams, a lot of important stuff. That networking is such a super important thing. And I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, because who hasn't heard this before? Like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in many ways, I don't necessarily agree with that, because, well, yes, I do think it's important to have good connections, to know who you're talking to put yourself in a position where you're talking with decision makers and people that can, hey, maybe help you progress in your career. I also think it's important to know what you're doing at the same time, because, well, if you don't know what you're doing, then you're kind of useless, if you get what I'm saying. Not a bad thing, it's just you kind of want to know what you're doing, bud. And for me, the networking helped me learn a lot of important lessons. It helped me learn a lot of important things, especially about people in higher levels of position. Because clearly for me, like, say I want to work in corporate America. I clearly don't want to stay at the ground level for all of my career, because I just find that wildly boring. I would like to be in a position where, hey, I like to engage people. I like to engage teams. I like to lead teams. I like to, do something more. And I learned from the higher level executives, especially people in like marketing field and things like that, like positions that I want to be in, how much they value family. And this is wild. Like, to me, this was almost like a divine revelation, because normally you would expect higher executives, like based off horror stories and things like that, hey, they don't necessarily give a crap about family. It's like, hey, homie, we're out here making this bread. I don't give a rat's butt cheeks. I'm not spending a lot of time with my family. But listening to a lot of these executives talk, it was just, wow. A lot of the decisions that they make are based off their family, because they don't want to sacrifice that relationship with their family. Like, they're not, like, they acknowledge that, yes, we could make more money. That's not, that's clear and obvious. They could make more money. But they're choosing the time with their family as something far more valuable. And to me, that was respectable. That was something that I never thought in a million years I would hear. Because we've heard the horror stories. We've seen high-level executives with infidelity. We've heard high-level executives that talk about strained relationships with their families because of their jobs. Like, yes, that doesn't mean what they're doing isn't important. It's just, some people could argue, where are your priorities? And for the executives that I had the opportunity to talk to, I respected them heavily for that, because they chose their time with their families. They chose that, well, yes, they could do more. They like the position that they're at, because it still gives them that flexibility and that opportunity to really enjoy time with their family and just make the most of it. And as somebody that wants to, be in a high level executive position, but at the same time wants to be a family man one day, that does set a good example for me, because it's like, hey, you can find this healthy balance of doing things. And that's an important thing. People talk about the work-life balance, but the thing is, I don't think a lot of us really understand what that looks like until you actually see it in practice. And I think this is more prevalent when you see it with high-level executives who are clearly managing much more important things than, say, people at the ground level, which I'm not undervaluing the people at the ground level, because they obviously, will keep the boat floating. But clearly people in higher levels of positions, especially like executive positions and things like that, they're clearly making a lot of long-term big brain plays. So clearly the decisions that they make have a lot of weight, and it's important that they know what they're doing and also have, a plan, and not just let's wing it and figure it out. And I think for me, seeing that work-life balance of truly understanding what it's like to have a balance between when work ends and when you spend time with your family, to me, that was a very important lesson to learn, because I always heard about this. We always talk about this, whether it be in books, podcasts, whatever it may be. But seeing it in person really was, well, different. It was very encouraging to see that something that I always believed in wasn't just a myth, wasn't just something that was like this altruistic idea that can never be achieved, but in reality, it is possible, even in some high level executive positions. Now, granted, I don't know how crazy it gets when you hit all the way to the very top of the food chain, but even then, like, we had conversations with like the president of all North American sales, and he even talked about it. Like, to him, one of the pieces of advice he gave us was, you could have, like, somebody asked him, like, what's more important? Like, what kind of legacy would you want to leave? And for him, like, I know I'm probably paraphrasing and that's probably not the question they asked him, but the whole moral of the story is that he would rather leave a lasting legacy with his family than 1 billion people. Because to him, the 1 billion people will forget about him by the time he's dead, but his family will never forget about him. And that, to me, it stuck with me a lot. And I respected him heavily for that, because he showed that he genuinely cares about his family, that when it's time to put stuff down, it's time to enjoy time with your family. And to me, that was very respectable. I respected that heavily. But this also comes down to, like, understanding some of the things with corporate America where, well, just being honest with you, corporate America doesn't really care about how you feel. It's like, you know, that's just the cold hard reality. This is something I learned from my mentors a long time ago. And even going into this internship, where it's like, hey, bud, do not take anything personally here. Be mindful. Corporate America will never care about how you feel. It never will, never has. That's just how the cookie crumbles. It's just good business. And it's like, you know, whether you agree with that or not, hey, that's on you. But that's just the cold hard facts here, is that, you know, doesn't really care. Corporate America doesn't really care about how you feel, if I'm being honest with you. They don't really care. They care about, you know, if you can generate the revenue and stuff like that. But I also got to see something interesting here too. This is another important thing that I'm adding into, because there's so many things here that I can just digest and talk about. But I want to talk about this one. It's this idea of company fit, or let's talk about this culture fit. I think that's a better way of putting it. For many people, they think this idea has been talked about in business classes, business schools all the time, of this idea of a bad hire wasn't because of bad performance, but because they just weren't a good fit for the culture. And I think a lot of people don't seem to understand this until they're actually in that position, where if you're just not a fit for the culture, then it's never going to work. Like, yes, you can do the job. Like, you could have all the skills, all the knowledge possible to do the job, generate more revenue than every single person on the team. But if you are not a good fit for the team culturally, like, you generally don't, I wouldn't say play well with others, because I think that's a bad way of putting it. I think a better way of putting it is that if you don't understand what the long-term goals, what the long-term, like, you know, what is this team trying to accomplish? Are they trying to be a family? Are they trying to be people that, hey, I would like to get to know you better. I would like to, you know, I would like to understand what makes you tick so I can better help you, you help me. Like, what is the dynamic of the team? And if you're just not a good fit for that team, like if you're just genuinely, your personality and how you are and what makes you tick is not a good fit for the team, then it's just never going to work, because we're not trying to change people here just to fit a team or fit a mold, because that's not right. But the whole point is, like, that was something I had to learn was, hey, in this case, I wasn't a good fit for the team, because let's just be honest here. You guys that have known me for a good period of time, specifically people in my personal life, and hey, maybe you've been watching the show for all these years and you probably have, you know, caught my drift, that my personality is, it comes off very strong. My personality is a very no BS, straight to the point. That's just how I am. Like, I don't believe in beating around the bush. I don't believe in, how would you say? I don't believe in bullshit, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I naturally will tell you what's on my mind. And yes, I do talk a lot, which is kind of funny because I do a podcast where I'm essentially talking into a camera this whole time. But I acknowledge that I do like to talk a lot. And sometimes I can rub people the wrong way. And obviously people that don't know me well, because let's be honest, you're getting to know me in 10 weeks. I think with any human being, trying to get to know somebody in 10 weeks is not necessarily the best indicator of them, because it's going to take maybe a couple years to truly get to know somebody. That's just the reality of things. Like, you're not going to really get, and I know some people give me pushback for this, and that's perfectly fine. my understanding of things, if you truly want to get to know somebody, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of intentional conversations. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that makes you really get to know somebody better. And so to make a judgment call on someone's personality in a couple of weeks, I'm like, take it with a grain of salt. And that's another important thing is like corporate America, you have to learn to take some things with a grain of salt. Again, don't take anything personally. That's just the reality. They don't care about how you feel. But this really leads into the other point that I was mentioning too, which was talking about feedback and the importance of it. That in corporate America, feedback is a very important thing. Like, that doesn't just mean your manager's giving you feedback, or at least constant feedback, but you also giving feedback to your managers. Like, hey, what are they doing well? What are they not doing well? Like, hey, maybe like if, prime example, they see something's wrong and they don't really bring it up to you until the very last minute, let's bring that up. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's say, hey, I respect that you brought this to my attention. I just wish that you would have brought this sooner. If you had concerns, you can approach me. We can have these conversations. How can we go about making this more comfortable for not only you, but for me, so that we can have these conversations and make it more, how would you say, intentional? That it's not just, oh, let's just say all these bad things on the way out the door to make you feel bad. Like, hey, if there's stuff that's worrying you, maybe say 2 weeks in, let's talk about them. Like, hey, bring this to my attention. Like, hey, I'm starting to notice this pattern. Do you mind explaining and talking about this? And I'm like, hey, yeah, let's have a conversation. Like, I don't have a problem with it. This is where it was interesting because it was mentioned in one of my classes, the importance of feedback, where it's not just one party telling the other. It should be a constant conversation between both, because that's what makes a healthy dynamic. That's what makes a healthy relationship. That's what leads to an overall good environment. And that's fine if some people don't want to do that. That's also the important thing here too, is that, hey, if somebody just doesn't want to do that and they'd rather just, tell you all the stuff on the way out the door, then you aren't really going to change them. That's just how they are. And this is part of the whole thing, where in a company like Dell, it's a very big company. There's maybe hundreds of thousands of teams. You may not be a good fit in one team, and that's fine. There's still a couple other 100 to maybe 1,000 teams that you might actually be a good fit in. There's many opportunities. Like, you may not be a good fit in one, that doesn't mean you wouldn't be a good fit in another. And it's this idea of, you got to get a lot of no's before you get a yes. And that's that's what you want to do, is you want to keep grinding. You want to keep focusing on the yeses. Like, yes, acknowledge the no's, maybe take some mental notes of what they're telling you, because, maybe if you start seeing some consistent patterns and things like that, you should probably take the hint. But in many ways, it's one of those things where this was the first time I tackled corporate America. And that's really what I wanted out of the internship, was to really get a better understanding of corporate America. But to me, I genuinely enjoyed the company that I was working at. This was the first time that, besides the CA job, which this gig has its own pros and cons to begin with, but this was really the first time where I actually had fun doing what I was doing, and I actually enjoyed the people I was hanging out with. Like, hey, if I didn't care about the people I was in the internship with, I wouldn't have cried when I had to say goodbye to them, because I can't see them on a regular basis anymore. That doesn't mean I can't talk to them. That just means, hey, I can't see them like on a regular basis. Where I get to go hang out with them. Like, I just walk across the street and go talk to them, or go have lunch with them, or go go to the club or something, or go have a drink. But it's one of those things where I genuinely enjoyed what I was doing. And, I've made my beliefs very, very open and honest here, if I'm being honest with you guys. Like, I've been clear up front. Like, I know you guys are probably familiar with my beliefs, and you're not. Well, spoiler alert, I'm a Christian. That I've always believed that everything happens for a reason. I've always believed that God has allowed every experience in my life to help teach me something, to help show me something, maybe to help point me in the right direction, and that direction is His direction. And in many ways, hey, maybe this group or this opportunity maybe wasn't the right fit. Maybe it wasn't what He has for me, but hey, maybe this company is the company that I get to actually have a career at. And it's just, hey, maybe it didn't work out this route. Maybe it might work another route. And it's a thing of, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, because to be honest, it was an incredible opportunity. Like, getting to actually work at a company that I was, at least familiar with, that I at least had an understanding of the products, because a lot of my background is in engineering, especially like we talk about trends in technology, pieces of technology. So a lot of the products made sense in my mind because I was like, well, yeah, I know about a lot of this stuff already. Like, it's not, we're not necessarily breaking ground here, but it's one of those things where I loved every moment of it. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity because, hey, well, yeah, I could say it looks good on the resume now. I'd be like, yeah, I got some corporate experience, government clearance, worked for did some federal government stuff. That's cool and dandy, but I know for me, the memories are something that I don't want to forget, if I'm being honest with you. And I'm glad I got to meet the people that I met, whether it be the one-on-ones, whether it be a lot of the high executives, whether it be even the other interns, like getting to know them and really just making some new friends. To me, that meant a lot. And well, yes, it's sad that it's over. Obviously the money was good. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the money wasn't good, but that wasn't everything. Like, to me, it was genuinely those interactions of just spending time with people that I would have never had the opportunity to know or meet if it wasn't because of this opportunity. And yes, well, I do hope some of the stuff that we talked about here was useful. To me, I hope that this was, like I say this, I hope that this was useful for a lot of people that are interested in tackling corporate America, for a lot of people that are, maybe in the same position, like they're in college, they're wanting to get internships, they want to know what it's like to really work at a big firm. Because let's be honest, I've heard multiple opinions. Some people say, hey, maybe it's better to go work in a smaller or medium firm. Some people say, hey, it's better to go work in a large firm. It's just weighing the pros and cons, because what works for one person won't work for everybody. It's just, hey, this worked for me. This might not work for you, but maybe this advice might be useful for everybody, because there's a lot of stuff to take away from this. And that's the reality. And that's why we're even doing this, is because, yes, we can just sit here. We can dog about all the bad stuff that happened. We can sit here and, talk about all the great stuff. But I would like to use this experience as a learning experience for a lot of people, because there are a lot of things that can be taken away from this experience that will help people in their journeys, whether it be going into corporate America, whether it be starting their own business, whether it be, whatever it may be. There are lessons to learn here that apply universally. And that's really what I like using the Real Talks for. And we've talked about this multiple times. Like, the Real Talks are a way for us to talk about these more real things and really have some intentional conversations here, and not just jibber jabber and sit here like talking about some random crap like the newest iPhone. Like, I get it, people care about that, but who gives a shit? Let's just be honest here. Sorry for the language. But to me, this is important. This is the conversations that we should be having. That's why I love doing this stuff, because if I didn't care, I wouldn't be talking about it. And I've had a lot of time to think about this. Like, I basically had a month to think about all this stuff. Well, actually more than that, because, if we're being honest here, well, we did start the internship in May. So clearly the whole point that we would eventually talk about this, because we alluded to it. But at the end of the day, did I have fun? Yes. Did I make some good money? Yes. Was it the outcome I wanted? No. Was it a bad experience? No. Man, I really need some water. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But with all of that said, I hope that me talking about this experience was useful. I hope that there were some things to take away from it. If you have any personal questions for me that you want to talk about in just more of a one-on-one setting, hey, shoot me a DM on my social medias. You guys know how to reach me. Just shoot me up a message and we'll talk. Let's have a chat. If you want to go, if you know me in person, let's go have some coffee or something. I don't know. I don't drink coffee, but hey, if you want to go get some coffee, why not? But at the end of the day, I hope a lot of the stuff was useful, and I hope you guys enjoy. I've always said this multiple times, and I will always keep saying this. The Real Talks are some of my most favorite conversations I get to have on this show. That's why I keep doing them. Like, yes, like they don't generate the views and the clicks and everything, even though some of them did, because some of them struck a nerve with some people. But I wouldn't say struck a nerve, but they were just interesting conversations. But that's the whole point, is that the Real Talks are just real conversations about real things affecting people on an everyday basis. And obviously tackling corporate America is a pretty big one, especially because some people have some resentment towards it. Some people have aspirations to go tackle corporate America, climbing the ladder and, sticking it to the man and claiming your paycheck, But at the end of the day, I hope a lot of this stuff was useful. And thank you guys so much for allowing me to even have a piece of your time. And I greatly appreciate it. I thank you guys for everything. Again, thank you guys for all the downloads, for all the love, the support. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all the feedback, because it's really useful. Like, I wouldn't keep doing this if you guys weren't giving me feedback. I wouldn't keep doing this if you guys didn't actually care and download this stuff. Because let's be honest, if you guys weren't downloading these episodes, I really probably wouldn't keep doing this, even though like it's kind of like self-therapy for me. But like I just love doing this stuff, man. It's so fun. And I really appreciate it. If you guys like this episode, then hey, download it, share it with everybody, and let me know what you guys think. But I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. I know this is going to be a very busy week, especially going into next week, because classes start on Thursday. So yeah, this is my last full year here, and there's a lot to think about. There's a lot going through my mind, but right now it's just baby steps, little by little, obviously focusing, making time for my workouts, making time for my friends, for my family, obviously making time for all my classwork, for, my job here on campus. The whole point, and even, doing the show too, because you guys always like it when I keep coming back to y'all. So I always like trying to keep you guys engaged and entertained as much as I can. But again, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it. Hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. I hope you guys don't do anything dumb. At least try to be safe if you're going to do something stupid, guys. Please don't do anything dumb. I hope you guys just take care, enjoy. If you've already started classes, then, I wish you guys the absolute best when it comes to your classes this semester and this school year. Try your hardest. Hey, if it's your first year, or maybe it's your last year, do your best. That's all you really can do. There's no need to worry about, I always do it like this. Do your best so you don't have any regrets later. Always do your best no matter what. Just always try your best. But I love you guys to death. Hope you guys are safe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.